NEWSDAY here on Horizon News. August 21st, 2020, that was last Friday, marked 1 year since President Buhari inaugurated his second-term cabinet. A lot has happened since then in terms of policy development and also implementation. Some of PMB's achievements include the establishment of new ministries such as that of Police Affairs and Humanitarian Affairs, Disaster Management and Social Development. While recently he gave assent as well to a landmark bill amending the Companies and Allied Matters Act, CAMA, which the Christian Association of Nigeria, is kicking against at the moment. While joining us now for a discussion on Buhari's policy developments and implementation in Abuja is AJURI NGELALE, Special Assistant to President Buhari on Public Affairs. And here in Lagos, ADELAJA ADEOYE, ADP National Publicity Secretary, is with us in the studio. Many thanks to you both for joining us on NEWSDAY this afternoon. And AJURI, I'm going to come to you first in Abuja. The president had inaugurated two fresh new ministries, that of Police Affairs and that of Humanitarian Affairs. AJURI, how much impact would you say that these ministries have had in the past year?
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me on the program, and good afternoon, of course, to our viewers. Let me just say that, the creation of ministries is certainly not considered an achievement by President Muhammadu Buhari. It's simply an administrative necessity. The achievements come within the workings of those ministries. And so when we talk about the Ministry of Police Affairs, of course, that is the ministry that is in large part overseeing the establishment of the new police trust fund, which the president has operationalized within the first year of his second-term administration, a major landmark achievement. If you look at the Ministry of Humanitarian Affairs, Disaster Management and Social Development, the real need there is now we're going to be able to institutionalize and give permanency to the establishment or to the operation of the social investment programs, which have benefited 15 million Nigerians over the last 5 years, and of course were not in existence before 2015. And so when you look at sustainability and you look at our ability to not just operate the social investment programs but expand them even further, with Batch C, for example, of N-Power coming on with about 400,000 new recruits that will be coming into the system very soon, and then of course with the police trust fund, what that's going to do to upgrade the capacity of our policemen and women across the country, you'll know that the establishment of those two institutions is very critical to implementing the vision of the president.
All right, AJURI, I'll come to you sometime, but let me have ADELAJA respond to this. ADELAJA ADEOYE, ADP National Public Secretary, respond to this question. ADELAJA, glad to have you join NEWSDAY. So the president signed the CAMA bill, of course, that's the Companies and Allied Matters Act, into law. A lot of dust has been raised by not just some church leaders, by NGOs, even by the NBA, surprisingly. Even Serap has gone as far as asking the president to revoke a law that has been passed. That's the CAMA bill. How do you respond to these dissenting views?
Well, I think the first point of call is that we have to realize that government is in government because of the people. And they are not there to make laws for themselves. The laws are made to guide the operation of the country and the people. And when a law is made and the people are agitating for rolling it back or removing it, I think government needs to also have a rethink and take a restep so that there will be no chaos in the country. We are talking about CAMA, which we talk about ease of doing businesses, and also we talk about religious organizations, NGOs, and even MBA and so many other organizations. Like for the religious body that talks about how they need to, that the government can appoint a trustee for them. Of course, naturally, you expect them to react. So at this point in time, it is good for government to see how they can sit with the people that are affected and see how they can harmonize and come, and explain their position, and also hear from the other people too, and see how everybody can meet at a center point in order to solve the problem. We cannot say that we have made a law, we have passed it into law, then so anybody that is not pleased with it can go to hell. A country is not run in such manner because, like I said earlier, that this government is in place because of the people. If it is possible for all of us to be president at the same time, everybody will be president, but we cannot all be president at the same time. So that's why people entrust the power on one person that go and be our leader and represent us and make laws on our behalf. And if law that you are making is not to serve the people, or a law that is capable of creating more confusion and trouble amongst the people, so it is better for the government to see how they can look at how to review such a law. Thank you.
Oh well. Okay. All right.
All right. Okay. Let me just come to you, AJURI, with the same question. Of course, that particular controversial section of the CAMA 2020, which actually came into effect in August, section 839, subsection 1 and 2, that a lot of people have been talking about. And my question first to you is this, AJURI: wasn't there widespread consultation and meeting of minds when this particular CAMA was coming into effect or being drafted? And also, what is the position of the government to the backlash? Like you've just mentioned, Indy just mentioned that churches, not just churches alone, even bodies are actually coming out and kicking against this, both youth bodies and both even major practitioners, lawyers are kicking against this, and they're calling it anti-Christian.
Thank you very much. Well, let's be very clear about what this is. You have an extensive set of consultations that took place during the compilation process. We're talking about individuals who are senior advocates of Nigeria. We're talking about individuals who are pastors in the Christian church. We're talking about Islamic authorities. We're talking about people across regulatory agencies and NGOs that were consulted during the compilation process of the CAMA amendment. That's number one. Number two, it is clearly not in any way an infringement on the human rights or the freedom of expression of any of these institutions in question. Why do I say so? If it was, you certainly would not have a major endorsement from the Nigerian Bar Association, the NBA. The NBA came out and publicly applauded the CAMA amendment in its totality, not in parts, but its totality. Let me be very clear about what the provisions of the amendment are as it relates to not churches, by the way, but charitable organizations and nonprofit organizations. That includes, obviously, environmental-based NGOs, anti-corruption NGOs, NGOs of all sorts. It includes Christian associations, Islamic associations, mosques, churches, everybody that falls under that umbrella. What we have just done is to update the CAMA, the Companies and Allied Matters Act, to reflect international convention. It is clearly in accordance with international convention. If you look at the United Kingdom Charities Commission and the law that established it, you would know that the process by which they have dealt with issues like money laundering, because this is not a Nigerian phenomenon, this is an international phenomenon in which people are using nonprofit organizations, using mosques, using churches as conduits to launder money, sometimes on behalf of government officials, sometimes on behalf of fraudulent actors who are using these institutions to launder their money. All right, so if you look at the UK Charities Commission, what they've done, for example, just as an example, is they have a mechanism by which once an investigation is conducted, all right, and it's found that there's evidence and it's true that there are these infractions that have to do with money laundering and many other infractions. They have been empowered with the power of appointment of a trustee to ensure that you have a non-aligned actor who can ensure that there's some level of normalcy within the administration of that particular organization that had been found wanting. Let us also be very clear about something very critical. Within the CAMA amendment, it is clearly stated that the process begins with a form of self-reporting. What does that mean? That means that within, whether it's an NGO, whether it's a mosque, whether it's an Islamic association, whether it's a church or a Christian association, there has to be somebody from within would raise an alarm, for example, right? That says, look, there's something going on here. This needs to be investigated. A court order is then obtained. Once a court order is obtained, an investigation is now carried out. It is during that investigation, right, that you would now have a situation where authorities would get involved. But there is no appetite on the part of the federal government of Nigeria or any subnational authority to meddle in the business of churches and mosques and NGOs. That's not the desire. What the desire is, however, is to ensure that people are not using non-profit organizations to launder money or to engage in corrupt practice. And I think...
Thanks, AJURI. Let me come in here. I'm going to stay on you for just a second. We'll bring this back to Lagos. I want to take the topic a bit away from the Kama Amendment just in a second. But firstly, do you think that this comes down to a lot of distrust that people, us Nigerians, have for the government? Because, quite frankly, on the face of it, the Kama Amendment is quite welcoming. But do you think it does come down to distrust? But more so, AJURI, let's move on to a different topic for the sake of time and speak about the artisanal gold mining scheme, which is another very welcoming development. Two pilot schemes for this initiative are currently taking off, I believe, in Osun and Kebbi states, and it's allowed over 20,000 artisanal miners to register on the Nigerian database. And I mean, this is great, but these are states that are plagued with conflict and insecurity. How much FDI does the government really think we're going to attract?
Thank you very much. So let me start with your first question that has to do with whether there's distrust. There's absolutely distrust. And I think that distrust is well earned. When you look at the fact that we've had, decades now, and I say this as much of from a perspective as a citizen as possible, that before 2015, before the coming of President Muhammadu Buhari, before there were really serious attempts at fighting corruption and regularizing public finance and public institutions, there was a lot of understandable distrust, given all of the scandals, given all of the failure of leadership we had seen in decades prior. So we know that that's a problem. The way that you bridge that gap and solve that, it's not going to happen in a day. It's going to happen over a period of time where you're telling your people, this is what we're going to do, and then you do it. There's nothing that words are going to do. It's really about action. But once you set the expectation and you meet the expectation, gradually people will say, okay, these people mean business now, unlike what we may have known in the past. That's that side of it. Now, in terms of the PAGMI scheme, it's a scheme we're really excited about. It's very much in line with President Muhammadu Buhari's determination to diversify the nation's economy away from oil and gas revenues into other critical labor-intensive, job-creating sectors, such as solid minerals development. And of course, we all know about what has happened in agriculture over the last 5 years. Now, with PAGMI, it doesn't just deal with normalizing the artisanal mining processes and formalizing artisanal mining operations and all of that. It also deals with all aspects of the value chain. It's one thing to mine a product, to exploit and get the product out of the rock or get out of the stone. It's another thing, however, to be able to locally refine that product, locally add value to that product and process that product to the extent that you are exporting a finished product. And for the first time under President Muhammadu Buhari's administration, we have seen a formalization of the process where actors in the sector know exactly what to do. They know who to talk to. They know where to register. Everything has been formalized. And they have now been incentivized to say, look, if you're able to get this done, we are going to give you whatever support you need, whether it's in the form of low interest or zero interest credit facilities and the like, to be able to enhance your operations, not just in terms of exploitation, but also in terms of refining. And so for the first time, Nigerian produced and Nigerian refined gold has been bought by the Central Bank of Nigeria as a gold reserve. That is the first time it has ever happened. And the reason why that was possible is because it was the first time in our nation's history that gold produced and refined in the country met the London bullion manufacturing standards. And I think that's something that all of us in Nigeria, irrespective of political affiliation, can be proud of.
All right, okay. ADELAJA, this is to you, but I'm sure that AJURI, you probably have one or two things to say about this particular topic. But ADELAJA, this is to you. The president has ordered an audit of the NDDC, which in itself is novel and fantastic. But since then, it's been a potpourri of, you know, how the NDDC has shortchanged the Niger Deltans and Nigerians in general. Corruption has been enmeshed in corruption. The talk, however, is why is the Minister of Niger Delta Affairs and the person of Godswill Akpabio still there? What has become of the audit? And then, of course, the House investigation into the happenings or the dealings at the NDDC.
Well, like we all know that President Buhari came to power with the I want to fight corruption mantra. And we are all seeing what has been happening since he came to power since 2015. You know, the expectation of Nigerians at this time is that the minister involved should have been asked to step aside, and the NDDC MD also should have, be stepped aside so that investigation can go ahead, that the audit can unravel so many things. But what we are seeing is a distraction, from the minister trying to accuse member of National Assembly of taking contract.
Is that really a distraction? I was going to even bring that up, but continue.
That's to me is a distraction.
Or rather than pointing out what is happening.
You cannot say if people, they are Nigerians, that they have legitimate right to take contract or their company, but that is not the subject of discussion. The subject of discussion is the audit, to know what is going on at the NDDC, to unravel the corruption that has been going on there. So all the actors, okay, let me take you back, let me digress a little. Look at the case of University of Lagos, where that involved Babalaki and the former vice chancellor. The president asked the two of them to stay aside, appointed a new person recently so that they can unravel what the problem is. That is what is expected at the NDDC. That is the kind of things that should have happened at the NDDC, so that we will know what the problem is. We know those people that collected contract and they did not execute the contract. We know those people that diverted a lot of money. We know the people that did contract inflation and so many other shady deals within the NDDC. We are also talking about scholarship of the people in the region. A lot of them are claiming that they have not been enjoying scholarship. Of course, we have been getting reports of roads being awarded and they are not completed. All this information are in the public domain. So these are things that should have been done. Akpabio-led, NDDC or sponsor NDDC should have been asked to step aside. And the president will take credit for it, that really is fighting corruption. But
you hold on there. Let me turn to AJURI so that we can get the government's position about the NDDC. A lot of people have accused the government of being a little bit too slow in responding to this alleged corruption that's eaten deep into the fabrics of the NDDC.
Thank you very much for the opportunity to respond. Let me just say that the only reason why we are talking about the NDDC and the massive graft that has occurred within the NDDC is because President Muhammadu Buhari had the political will, the courage, and the integrity to say enough is enough. This has to stop. And he's the one that put that in place. It's important to note that, because we get caught up, naturally, we get caught up in the conversation about, NDDC probe and all the controversy and all the actors and lawmakers and all these crazy, nonsensical things that we see happening in certain places. But we forget within all of that noise and conversation that the only reason why we're having that conversation is because of what the action the president took, which had not been taken in the previous 16 years when most of these billions of dollars had been stolen away from the people of the Niger Delta. Now, I think for us now, the key is moving forward. How are we going to ensure that this probe takes place in a manner that will earn the trust and respect of all Nigerians? And that's why the president says he's less concerned about rushing a process and playing to the gallery. And he's more concerned about making sure that the process is diligent, that it's efficient, that it's effective, and that it gets results that accurately reflect the realities on the ground. And that's why he's ready to take his time. If you look at what is happening even in terms of the investigation of a former chairman of the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission, you would agree with me that the process has been very methodical, very efficient, and very well paced in such a way that the conclusions of whatever investigations are taking place accurately reflect the reality. Because what you don't want is a situation where you rush investigation because of public pressure or because of political expediency, and then you get to the point where you need to get into litigation, prosecution, and all of that, and your cases are falling apart for lack of due diligence. The president understands all of that. He's more concerned with getting the process right than he is about rushing to a result. But let's acknowledge the fact that it's under this administration that the EFCC, for example, was able to increase its share of asset recoveries 3 times of what it was in the previous 6 years in the first 4 years of this administration. In specific terms, that's 939 billion naira out of 1.2 trillion that was collected over the last 10 years. 939 billion was collected over the last 4 years. So that gives you a sense of what Mr. President has done in terms of the anti-corruption war, but there's still much more work to be done. There's no doubt about that.
Thanks, AJURI. I mean, we're speaking about money now, so let's speak about the economy. ADELAJA, ADEOYE, I'm going to come back to you here in our Lagos studios. And there's a quote that I saw that I want to read out to you, and then I want to get your opinions on this. I'm quoting Osita Chidoka, former aviation minister and also advisor to the PDP national chairman. And he said, on the economy, Nigeria's debt has risen about 36 trillion naira. It has grown 3 times to what it was in 2015. It has grown from about 12 trillion naira, meaning that 90% of our revenue is actually going into debt servicing. So I don't know how that can be seen as an achievement. ADELAJA, what are your thoughts on this?
Well, if you look at, let me try to go into what the government is planning, which is the Nigeria Economic Sustainability Plan that they put in place. Okay, you find out that they put about 2.3 trillion as what they want to use as stimulus for the economy, to revive the economy yearly under 12 months. But for me, I look at the whole thing as unrealistic, because there is more borrowing. They said they are going to borrow about 1.1 trillion from CBN. They're also going to take about 300 billion, from external and multilateral and bilateral, borrowing. They also have about 302 billion also from other sources. They didn't state the source. So naturally, you should know that this government is a government of borrowing, without any source of repayment. And the infrastructure and other non-essential, spending that they are talking about is not adding up at all. So this government is a government of deficit right from the beginning. Look at the China loan. You look at other loans accumulated. Helping. At the end of the day, we find out that we are not in plus. We are always in negative. So how are we going to come out? A loan that you kept piling up, and the oil revenue that's a mainstay of the economy is dwindling, going down. So tell me, this is a government that does not have any clear-cut economic plan for Nigerian people, other than just borrowing and borrowing and borrowing. We all know simple mathematics. If you keep borrowing and you borrow more than what you can pay, you are going to be in trouble. The trouble have started already, because if you look at so many states are unable to pay salary, except just some few states, like Oyo State, that has been paying salary consistently that I know of. So these are problems we have, and that's why we are talking about leadership, good leadership in the country.
Yeah, good. AJURI, let me quote exactly what ADELAJA said a while ago. He said, this government is a government of borrowing without any source of repayment. I'd want you to talk about that, but just hold on a bit. I'll add this question to that. And that's the fact that just yesterday on this program, the governor of Katsina State posited here on this program that 90%, that's a whopping figure, of the weapons that come into the country are from neighboring Niger Republic. Yet, Nigeria commenced Operation X Swift Response, a multi-security operation to secure the nation's land borders. There seems to be a disconnect somewhere. If what the governor said is true, take those two questions in your stride, AJURI.
Thank you very much. I will take those in my stride. Thank you very much. So, look, I want to start from the debt issue, because I think this is an issue where you have substantial misinformation. And so I'm going to challenge all of our viewers and, of course, our highly respected moderators to fact-check what I'm saying. If you go to dmo.gov.ng, that's the Debt Management Office website, what will you see? In 2015, in 2010, all right, this is the beginning of the oil boom. At 2010, our total national debt, that is external plus domestic, was $35 billion US. 35 billion US dollars, all right? As of 2015, the national debt ballooned to 64, or to be precise, 63.7 billion US dollars. That means $30 billion was added to the national debt at a time when our revenues were based on $100 per barrel revenues, right? We all know about what happened during that 5-year span. Almost zero infrastructure, no social investment programs, nothing to write home about. So Nigerians are looking at that $30 billion and they're saying, what have you done with that money? Nobody has an answer. Now, we're in 2015. You have $64 billion of debt on the table that you have inherited if you're President Muhammadu Buhari. Where are we now with our national debt? We're at, give or take, approximately, at last count, I think as of March, we were at about 84 billion, thereabout, and all of that. That's an addition of $20 billion over the first 4 years of President Muhammadu Buhari's administration. My sister, Leila, cited a statistic which was cited in Naira, which essentially said that our national debt was 12 trillion Naira in 2015, and that it's now 35 trillion Naira and all of that. This is a major area where opposition elements have attempted to actively and intentionally deceive Nigerians. Why do I say so? What was the currency, what was the rate of exchange between the currencies in 2015? In 2014, 2015, when it was $63 billion. The Naira was changing at about 160 Naira to a dollar within 2014, 2015. So when you look at the national debt, the 12 trillion then, you're not calculating it by 360 or 380. You're dividing it by 160. If you do that, you'll get the real figure. Now, if you look at the current Naira total debt, if you tabulate it in Naira, and you divide it by the current currency, not 160, but the current currency, you will get the real figure. The real figure is the dollar amount that I have quoted, and you can verify it on the DMO website. So what I'm saying to you is that in the first 4 years of this administration, we borrowed $10 billion less than the previous administration did, with double the revenues. And we have infrastructure across the country, airports, roads, bridges, power plants, dams, 15 million people on social investment programs, which did not exist before now, with half the revenues and $10 billion less debt. Go and verify that.
All right, AJURI, I don't know if you can quickly, just briefly, because since we're talking about the economy, with the figures coming out yesterday, which says that the GDP contracted by 6.10%. What is the government saying about this? How are they reacting to this particular figures coming in? Just briefly.
Thank you very much. So there was a report that obviously we know GDP we're in the contraction phase. That's not new to us. We knew that was going to happen. The issue was always about how can we mitigate it so we don't get into the situation that South Africa is in, for example, where they're looking at -20, -30 GDP contraction over the next several quarters. We were able to keep it within single digits, and we're optimistic that with the implementation of the 2.3 trillion Naira economic sustainability plan, that we're going to move it back into positive growth well before many of our counterparts in sub-Saharan Africa. We have the measures in place, and that's not including the Nigerian Youth Investment Fund, NYIF, of 75 billion in zero-interest credit facilities that we're providing to our young people to be able to expand their operations, expand their MSMEs, and leverage on their creative talents to create opportunities for employment for themselves and, of course, their fellow young Nigerians.
AJURI, fine. Let's just get ADELAJA to respond to your comments. And then, ADELAJA, that will be very, very brief.
Well, for me, I think one of the things they do badly in this government is to always blame the past government. When you were campaigning, you didn't tell Nigerians that you are going to be complaining about what happened or what transpired in the past. You were elected to solve problems. In your earlier, position, you said that KAMA is signed because of international best practices. Now, we ask you a question. How are you fighting corruption that you claim that you are fighting? Because you talk about money laundering and all those things. Even right now, the people in government that have been alleged that they've carried out one or two corruptions, what has your government of President Muhammadu Buhari has done to send them to probe them or to send them to jail? You still see some of these corrupt people in your government coming out to make comments in the public, and they are not even ashamed of doing all of that.
All right.
So we should not be talking about what transpired in the past.
ADELAJA, we will have to leave it there. Many thanks to both of you, AJURI NGELALE, Senior Special Assistant to President Muhammadu Buhari on Public Affairs, and you as well, ADELAJA ADEOYE, the Action Democratic Party National Publicity Secretary. That was good.